Hey everyone, this is Ari Whitten, and welcome back to the Energy Blueprint podcast. Today I have with me a very special guest, someone I've had the pleasure of speaking to numerous times now, and who has been a member of the Energy Blueprint program and is also a health expert and nutrition expert in her own right. Her name is Lori Valentine Rose, Ph.D., Dr. Lori Valentine Rose. She's a board-certified nutrition professional, board-certified holistic nutrition consultant, a registered herbalist, a wellness coach, a teacher, a wife, and a mom. And she is a passionate student of nutrition, herbalism, spirituality, and pretty much anything that makes our mind, bodies, souls, and the planet a better place to inhabit. And I love that. So welcome, Lori. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah. Awesome. So can you talk just a little bit about your background as far as how you got into this and kind of the path that you took to get here?
Sure. It's been a really windy road, right? I've just always been passionate about everything, but I really love the earth and life and biology. And so I went to school to be pre-med, actually. And then I took organic chemistry and I immediately switched majors.
Yeah.
It happens.
Organic chemistry tends to have that effect on people.
Yeah. What's funny is now I wish I could go back and really take it because I'm really into biochemistry now that I'm
that's funny.
But yeah. It's like,
well, yeah, I mean, I loved biochem, but organic chemistry was just painful.
Yeah, if they would have only told me it ended up in biochemistry, but who knows?
Yeah, once you get past all that.
But yeah, I happened to land in environmental science, which really got me on fire for the health of the soil and how interconnected our physical health is to our planet. And so I went and got my Ph.D. in biology, and just through another windy road, really when I got pregnant with my first child, I got super interested in nutrition. And I was always kind of like exercising and eating right and paying attention to food, but it was always in a body manipulation kind of way, as opposed to I want to feel awesome kind of way. And so then my passion really became nutrition. I went and I studied that. I've been teaching nutrition for about 10 years at a local community college. And then I became a gardener because apparently I have trust issues and I can't buy food from local farmers, and that beats it up.
I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's one of the quick digression as I'm interrupting your bio, but one of the misconceptions that people have with organic farming is people often think of organic as that they don't use any pesticides or herbicides or things like that. And that's actually not true. They can still spray lots of chemicals on it as long as they're accepted within the organic kind of pesticides, organic herbicides, the list of chemicals that are accepted within the organic regulations. And so a lot of people don't realize there's still some stuff which in certain cases may potentially cause harm, even on the organic stuff. So I'm with you on being a gardener, and I have my own big organic garden, which I know you saw the video that I posted the other day. And yeah, it's a pleasure to get stuff from right in your backyard that has no nasty stuff on it.
It is. It's amazing. And you get exercise and you get sun. I really think it's the one element that would solve all the world's issues, because we would clean up the planet and we clean up the environment and clean up ourselves. But yeah, I digress too. So once I started gardening, I had all of these herbs that I was using just as companion plants. I was like, I really kind of want to learn how to use these herbs. But my fear of conventional medicine sort of spilled over into that. And I was like, I don't want to kill myself. I don't know like what tea to make with this and what herb not to mix with this herb. So I went to herb school just to learn how to make herbal teas from my backyard, and I was lit on fire. I just kept going to herbal schools and kept going to herbal schools, and now I'm a registered herbalist, and I actually created a holistic nutrition and herbal school at that community college where I've been teaching. And so
that's awesome.
So that's where I am now, and it has been a windy road, and I had no idea this is where I would end up, but it's super thrilling and fun, that's for sure.
Very cool. So I want to talk to you in this podcast all about herbs. And And I know that's a passion of yours, and it's an area that is complex and is powerful. And yet at the same time, I think so many people have this, especially kind of evidence-based folk, who I generally identify with, often kind of look at herbs as like, oh, these are like silly new agey things that don't really work, from, kind of these alternative types, and granola types. And, they're maybe just placebos at best. And I think a lot of these people would be shocked to learn, as I was many years ago when I first started studying all the science around the herbs, that there's actually a huge body of scientific evidence supporting that a lot of these things actually have really powerful effects, and there's really no shortage of scientific evidence, which is pretty cool. So as a kind of an entry point to get into this, how is choosing herbs different from choosing medications and supplements?
That's a really good question. What's funny about your anecdote is I actually used to be one of those people. For like a decade, I was teaching food is medicine and your food can heal you and eat the right foods. And someone would bring up herbs and I would roll my eyes and like, whatever. And then I got into herbalism again, just to make tea from my backyard. And I realized the same thing as you. I had this realization that, oh my gosh, like herbs are plants, food is plants. Where was my barrier? Like,
right.
I really already believed in food as medicine as the plant world, the gift it was giving to us, and herbs were just doing the same thing. So it's sad that there's this huge disconnect between that reality. And one of the areas that disconnect kind of shows up is how if we just personally dabble in herbs, we can think they don't work because we choose them wrong and we use them wrong. Mm. And so before conventional medicine really came to rise in America, traditional herbalism was how people healed themselves. And for the majority of the world, they're still using herbs. But once conventional medicine took over, we kind of got into this, everyone, no matter who they are, has this symptom. You take the same medicine, you suppress that symptom, and it works automatically and instantly, and we're fine. We're happy with that choice. And so that mindset, when herbalism resurged kind of in the 60s, that mindset stuck around. And instead of choosing herbs holistically for the person, as most traditional herbalists do, we sort of allopathically viewed herbs as like, what herb can I take for this? What herb can I take for that? In fact, I just had someone Facebook message me today, what herb is best for hypertension? I'm like, you can't answer that question because different people with the exact same disease have different causes and have different manifestations. And so the same herb for one person with, say, for fatigue is going to affect someone else with fatigue that's completely differently. So as Hippocrates said, it's better to know the person that has the disease than the disease that has the person. And I can sort of explain that with an analogy. So let's say two people show up in Energy Blueprint and they both have extreme fatigue. That's their issue. And one person, I'm going to describe myself here. One person is super type A and they're driven and they never sleep and they work during the day and do their passion at night and take care of their kids in the evening, and they are fatigued because they don't sleep and they're sick all the time because they work through eating, and maybe they also happen to have dry skin, dry nasal passages, and they get frequent illnesses and they have fatigue, right? Then another person shows up and they have extreme fatigue, but they get 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night and they really just can't find the motivation to get off the couch. And they are cold and damp and they also get illnesses, but it's more congestion and allergies, and they have fatigue as well, but it's a different root cause fatigue. And so the same, if the type A person took a stimulating, energetic fatigue herb, that's going to exacerbate them, right? Versus that same herb might help that second person who really just needs a kick or needs a boost to get things going. Mm-hmm. And so what I was just describing is something that traditional herbalism calls energetics. And energetic sounds all foo-foo, right? But really it has to do with how is that person wired just constitutionally? Are they super like type A? Are they more chill, type B? Are they physically?
That's the technical term, right? Chill.
Oh yeah, chill.
Super chill.
Yeah, that's Ayurvedic. And it can also deal with things that we're more familiar with, like dryness versus dampness, tenseness versus laxity, coldness versus hotness. And plants also have energetics. And I think people, when they first hear about energetics and herbalism, that it kind of scares them. But if you really step back, it's something we really are familiar with, because we know cucumbers are cooling, cayenne is heating, right? We know they don't raise your temperature. You don't put a thermometer in your mouth and your fever went up, but you feel hot or you feel cool from that cucumber. And so plants all have energetics. And instead of, as in conventional medicine, the same person with the same disease name is going to take the same medication, in herbalism, you really have to know yourself, your constitution, how your symptoms are manifesting, and you want to kind of find that herbal sweet spot. You want to match the plant's energetics that are going to balance your energetics so that you bring everything back to center, as opposed to like cayenne sending that type A person more revved up, or a more sedating herb sending that type B person with fatigue more lethargic, which they don't need more of that.
So everything you said makes sense, but at the same time, I feel you've introduced so many layers of complexity to this that the average person listening to this is probably like, well, how the hell do I know what herb I need then? I mean,
Right.
it's simple if I can operate in a paradigm where I say, oh, I have high blood pressure. What herb do I take? Or I have, pain in my knees. What herb do I take? Whatever it is, that's kind of a simple way of processing things that most people can make sense out of. What you're talking about, I mean, does someone have to go to a professional in order to figure out what herbs they should take, or can this be done at home? And if so, how can they start to think about what herbs might be good choices for them?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think you have to go to an herbalist to do this. So the way my herbal teachers taught me, like, first of all, let's say we know the herb is safe, because you don't want to do what I'm about to tell you with just like walking out in your backyard and picking something that you don't know what it is. Let's say you know what this plant is, you know that it's safe to consume, and you taste it. Well, some plants, when you taste it, it's going to create that fire, heating taste in your mouth. Like, let's play a game. When you bite into ginger, is that heating or is it cooling?
Heating.
That's heating, right? Versus if you bite into, have you ever had, I'm trying to think of a common herb, right? Marshmallow root, or let's see. I can't think of a cooling herb off the bat because the heating ones are more prominent, like on the spice cabinet, and more commonly used. But the answer here is like you taste it. If you taste it and it's not heating, then it's either neutral or cooling. And if you taste something and it's drying and your mouth gets all dry, then that's a drying herb. Versus if you taste something and your mouth starts salivating, like goji berry, for example, that's moistening. And so you can really taste the energetics of the herbs.
Interesting. So is there a system for someone kind of doing a self-assessment and saying, oh, I'm a hotter personality, or I'm a colder, or I'm a wetter or drier? How is that done?
So there's lots of different ways you can do that, and you can take semesters long of energetics, and this is just one way to think about herbs. But I mean, think about your skin. Are you usually more dry, or are you usually like oily and damp? You can think about your hair. Is your hair dry and damp? Are you always thirsty, or is your mouth always salivating? Because you can be physically one energetic, and mentally another energetic. So for me, for example, my skin is dry, but personality wise, I'm cold, like all the time. If you walk into a room, I'm the one with the coat on and everyone else is fanning, right? So physically I manifest cold, but mentally and behaviorally I manifest hot, like a hot personality, because I'm always go, 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 go. So you can definitely overcomplicate this, but the important thing when picking an herb is just to choose something that, if you're dry, isn't going to over dry you. If you're already sedated and lethargic, you don't want to choose another sedating herb that's going to exacerbate you. And that's how you can start off with it a little more simple.
Okay. So break that down, systematize it more for everyone listening. So what are what are 4 or 5 main traits that they would kind of do a self-assessment on and just to be aware of? So
you mean body system?
Yeah. So like cold versus hot, damp versus dry. What are the other ones?
And tense versus lax. And
Okay.
usually you know which one of those you are, right?
Okay.
Are your muscles usually tense, or are you usually like super hard to get moving and motivated? You're limp and limbo. Personality wise, it may be oversimplistic to divide it into type A and type B, but if you're more kind of, you're the one who takes more to get motivated versus you're the one who really annoys the people who it takes more to get motivated. So I would say that's more of a hot personality versus a cold personality. As far as your temperature manifestation, are you always the cold one in the room versus the hot one in the room? If you're not one of those people, you could be neutral, right? Which is considered more balanced. And then skin's another one. Are you more dry versus damp? Hair, are you dry versus damp?
Okay, cool. And I know we'll get into more specific applications of that later on. So got it. So next question, how is using herbs different from using medication supplements? And, we talked just now about how is choosing herbs different from choosing medications and supplements. Now let's talk about how is using them different.
Yeah, and that's important too, because I think that's another way that our allopathic thinking sort of sneaks into our using herbs that can make it seem like they're not working.
Yeah, so let me just interrupt real quick, just in case anybody's unfamiliar with that term, allopathic. That's like mainstream conventional medicine paradigm is allopathic. So anyway, sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah, so it's to me, when I say that, it's like you take a medication to suppress a symptom, everyone takes the same thing, the symptom immediately goes away. And herbs just don't work like that. So if you come in thinking that's the way it's going to work, then you're going to think, oh, herbs are phooey and they don't work. So one way that choosing an herb is different is that you really want to match that herb to yourself as opposed to matching the herb to your disease name, which is what we just discussed. But this happened with me too. I mentioned that sort of my skepticism from conventional medicine snuck into the way I viewed herbs when I first started studying them, and I had this fear of them. And so with medication, when we take medicine, if you take too much, that's not good, and you can die, right? And so we know you only take your dose, and you only take it when it tells you to take it. You take it infrequently, and your symptoms are supposed to be suppressed. And herbs are different. The dose matters. And usually for most herbs are plants, and herbs tend to be food-like. So the doses for herbs are much larger than what we're used to for medications. I know a lot when I start getting herbal clients, I'm like, you need to put an ounce of herb in here, a whole ounce, and then cover it with water and let it steep. They're like, are you sure that's not too much? Like, if anything, that's not enough. Like, you need these herbs, right? So don't be scared to take the recommended, if you're working with an herbalist, the recommended dose of herbs, even though it's much larger than mentally what we think. And so in general, and there's low dose herbs, and that's really not what I'm talking about, the really toxic herbs that you just, take drops of them. I'm talking about the more food-like yet medicinal herbs. So you take more of them and you take them more frequently. That's one major difference.
Yeah, as a little example from my own personal life, I grow several herbs in my garden, and I often make a tea at night using lemon balm and lemongrass, and just a combination of those. And I actually use a shockingly large amount of those things. And I did it probably at the beginning just because, I like to maybe overdo things to see what the effect is, which is, obviously is a trait that has has potential for consequences. I wouldn't do it with any particular drug or anything like that, but with herbs, certainly. So I took like a lot of this stuff and I'm like, I want to see if I can notice any effect. And sure enough, slept very, very deep and peacefully and got to sleep very, very fast from using a combination of lemongrass and lemon balm in very, very large doses. So anyway, I'm still alive, everyone.
Yay!
even though I maybe quadrupled the typical dose.
Now you're that Ayurvedic chill, right? Yeah. And yeah, lemon balm is one of those herbs that I'll tell people, like, take a whole ounce of it every day to help you really relax. And versus if you would have taken like a tablespoon of lemon balm, you wouldn't have felt it. Right? And you would have been like, this herb doesn't work.
Right.
Go pull it up and plant something else, right?
Yeah.
No, but that's one of the reasons why a lot of studies testing herbs come up short, saying this herb is ineffective or wasn't as effective as the control. And it's because they use such small doses so infrequently that it's like a control compared to a control. It was nothing compared to nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, so as far as the specifics, is there anything beyond just like the amount of the dose? Is there anything around frequency that is an important distinction? Yeah.
So dose and frequency is really important, especially if you're in a healing protocol. Like if you're just using these daily as maintenance, you're going to use herbs more like food. But whereas medication, you're going to take every 12 hours or every 8 hours. Herbs are something you take 3 to 6 times a day. If you're in an acute sort of issue, like actual cold and flu infection kind of thing, herbs are something, depending on the herb, you can be taking them every 30 minutes for the whole time that you're sick. And so dose and frequency really, really matter when it comes to herbs. And so if you start an herbal protocol and you're like, this isn't really working, ask, am I matching the herb to myself? Am I taking enough of it? And am I taking it frequently enough? That doesn't mean for every herb, just up it. Because there are some toxic medicinal herbs. But again, those aren't the ones I'm really focusing on.
Okay. And how common is, what's called a biphasic dose response, which is basically the idea that, there's a dose range where if you take too little, it's not going to have much effect. And then if you take the right amount or within the range of the right amount, you're going to have good effects. And then if you take too much, you actually lose the effect. Is that common within herbal use? I would imagine that it is, and that maybe you have to have some cautiousness with overdoing it, not necessarily in the sense that you're going to have serious side effects, but maybe just that you would lose the effectiveness.
Here's something, I haven't really heard it put that way, except again for those toxic herbs. But something that might happen is you might throw off your energetic balance, right? Like if you're a dry, cold person and you take a lot of a drying, cooling herb for a long time, that's going to exacerbate your dryness and your coldness. Like even, I think usually the way I was taught with herbs, just to answer this question, the way my education has trained me, is if you get too high of a dose, you might get a headache or you might get a stomach ache. Like you'll know that it's too much because you'll get a discomfort or an
okay.
You just kind of, we call it titrating. Sounds like the chemistry term, but it's not really, right? Where you increase it and increase it and increase it until you get the effect you want, and then you back off just a little bit
until you get the effect you want, or maybe start to get side effects, and then
right, and then you back down a bit.
Okay, got it. So let's get into some specifics. What are some types of herbs that people can use specifically for helping with fatigue, helping with energy levels? Since this is, of course, the energy blueprint, let's talk about fatigue and energy.
Absolutely. And you know more than anybody that the first thing we have to ask here is, why are we feeling fatigue, right? If we're going to choose an herb to help with our fatigue, we need to know, is this a malnourishment issue? Is this a toxic load issue? Is this a lack of stress management? Do I just need to like stop and sleep maybe? Um, do I have some emotional trauma that's really manifesting in my body as disease? So knowing the source of our fatigue is the first place to start, and making sure we understand that an herbal protocol should always be combined with a nutrition and a lifestyle approach to addressing the actual cause of that fatigue. Because otherwise, really, we're just using herbs allopathically. We're trying to band-aid something instead of actually address it. But in light of those things that I just listed, there are herbs that can help in multiple categories. So one, let's say you have a malnourishment issue and you just have fatigue because your mitochondria isn't getting the nutrients that it needs, right? Well, you can take nutritive herbs, and nutritive herbs are these food-like herbs that are super high in vitamins and minerals. And these are the herbs you're really going to be taking a lot of and daily. And these are the herbs that you really, you can't get too much of. Probably the issue is you're going to get too little of it. So load them up. So nutritive herbs are things like nettles and oat straw and alfalfa, violet, linden, hawthorn's another nutritive herb, chickweed. So for these herbs, what you'll do is you'll put an ounce of dried herb in a mason jar covered up with just boiled water. You'll cover it and let it sit 4 to 8 hours, and then you strain it and drink it. You can do that as much as you can handle. But in light of energetics, so you said we would bring that up again. So for example, nettles are like cooling and drying, and violet is more moistening. And so that's how you can match within that category the herb that's going to work for you. Doesn't mean if you're cold and dry, never have nettles. I drink nettles every day, but I also make sure and balance it with other warming herbs like ginger and moistening herbs like marshmallow.
That's what I was just going to ask. Like, let's say you're a balance, you're not dry or moist. Could you use nutritive herbs as a mix of, let's say, nettles and violet together?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and energetics should never say, oh, I can't use this herb, because really our dryness and our tenseness and our laxness and our dampness versus dryness and hotness versus coldness, it's a manifestation of everything. The foods we eat, right? Like fats and oils, those are moistening. So if I happen to drink a lot of nettles, I make sure I get a lot of fats and oils to sort of offset that. So herbs are never excluded. You just want to consider them.
Okay. So what are the rules as far as mixing some of these nutritive herbs, for example? So would you typically just use 1 or 2 together for a given day, and you don't want to go beyond that? Or can you put like 6 of these different nutritive herbs all in the same jar and, drink it all day long? How does that work?
So you can probably hear some very well-known herbalists get into fun arguments if you ask that in a room full of herbalists. So Rosemary Gladstar says the only thing herbalists agree on is not to cook in aluminum pans. So some herbalists say always only use 1 herb at a time, so you know its effect on you and you can predict what's going to happen. Other herbalists say always, always, always use herbs in formulas, so you can create the balance that's specific to your body. And so really that's both ends of it, right? So mix them how you want, play with it, see what you like. Here's another thing. So KP Kalsa says the best herbal protocol is the one you'll actually do. So if you won't drink nettles by itself, but you'll drink nettles mixed with oat straw, do it, right? And so those nutritive herbs, those are herbs that they're super safe herbs. I wouldn't say there's any way you can mess them up.
Okay. Now, what are some other potential things that people might want to use herbs for? So that's, we covered like just malnutrition and getting kind of more vitamins and minerals into the system to help with that. What are some other potential things that someone might use herbs for? And I'll just throw out, like, let's say someone wanted to use it to help correct a sleep problem. What kinds of things would you recommend?
Right. So if you have a sleep issue, so this is all, it's going to depend, right? Are you not getting sleep because you're not letting yourself get sleep and you're just not making the time to do it? An herb's not going to fix that.
Right.
Versus are you not getting sleep because you're in pain? Then, an antispasmodic anodyne herb might help. Are you not getting sleep because of anxiety? Then a relaxing nervine herb might help.
Okay, so let's go into those two, because I think those are common. So let's like talk to me about good antispasmodic herbs that will help with physical relaxation and maybe combat some physical pain.
Yeah, so good herbs for that. And one thing I want to say about this is these herbs are more acute. They're not going to be like the nutritive herbs that you use a lot of every day, frequently, all the time. These are more, let's get you over that hurdle so you can get some sleep, get some energy, and then go fix the problem of why you're having a pain issue. So things like valerian, you can use that internally and externally. Cramp bark is a good antispasmodic herb that you can use internally and externally.
What's that one called? Clamp bark?
Cramp, like a cramp.
Cramp bark. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. And ginger, even like ginger compress mixed with cramp bark on the outside of a spasm or sore muscle, that can relax that muscle. Kava kava is another really important one. Another thing I want to mention about these herbs is a lot of them, because they're more strong on the medicinal side versus the food side. Some of them do have herb-drug interaction, so you want to make sure and look at that too.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So what about the nervine herbs? So someone's stressed out, they're type A, they have a lot of anxiety, they have a hard time turning their brain off at night, and their mind's racing, and that's disturbing their sleep.
Right. So there are different categories here. So there are some more gentle, relaxing nervines that you can take during the day that are going to just kind of make you chill out, but not turn you off and sedate you and make you sleep. Like lemon balm, if you take it in lower amounts, that's actually something you can drink in the morning or drink during the day. Chamomile, depending on the amount you can drink during the day to calm you down, or you can drink a strong chamomile tea at night to really sedate you. Milky oats. So the seeds of oat grass, when they're milky, so when you squeeze them and the milk comes out, it's not really milk, but that has a constituent that is relaxing but not sedating. That's something that you can take a long time, and it has an overall relaxing effect.
Say that one again. What is it? Milky oat?
Milky oats.
Milky oats. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that has a lot of research on it too. Versus, let's say it's nighttime. You don't care about not getting knocked out. You want to go to sleep, right? So valerian, again, can help with that. Passion vine can help with that. Catnip is a good one. That one's also antispasmodic. Chamomile skullcap is a great one. California poppy. These are all good herbs that, depending on the amount, some of them you can take during the day, and then most of them you can take at night to put you to sleep.
Gotcha. So let's actually delve into that a bit deeper, because let's say someone has chronic anxiety, which is something that is not infrequent among people with chronic fatigue. They just have debilitating anxiety. What kinds of herbs might they use during the day that are non-sedating, that are not going to make their fatigue and kind of general tiredness feel worse? But and then, at night, you mentioned the ones at night, maybe valerian, lemon balm, chamomile, some stronger doses of some of these, kava kava, things like that. But which ones might be better for daytime use?
So I would say milky oats for sure for daytime long term. That's not going to have an immediate effect. Depending on the amount of passion vine, that could be helpful. That might be more for like an acute anxiety attack kind of thing. But lemon balm is a great, gentle, relaxing herb that's not necessarily going to knock you out. Now, you say your lemon balm knocked you out, and that I just don't know how much you use. But I know.
But I actually have
like more than that much.
I didn't do it in a jar, so it's hard to know for sure. And
I measure everything.
Yeah. I used a lot, but it's also, I used a lot of lemongrass too, so it's hard to know. And lemongrass also has some of those I don't know, is lemongrass considered an herb technically, or?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. But that also seems to have some kind of sedative, hypnotic properties.
I've not heard that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm pretty sure that I'm correct on that.
Yeah.
And then, which is interesting because lemongrass, I think, might also be a stimulating herb, but I think it seems to maybe have both effects, or maybe it's dose dependent. I don't know.
So yeah, that's the point I was going to make, is maybe it was dose dependent. So that may be something like on a weekend where you don't have to go to work. Try an ounce of lemon balm in the morning, see if it sedates you too much, and then take it down a notch to where you feel the calm, and you can drink that daily every day. And then at night, you up the dose to your actual sedating dose.
Ah, okay. So you take it on an off day from work, just in case you're stuck on the couch all day and you can't move.
I've never heard of that happening with lemon balm, but you never know. Everyone's different.
Yeah.
Hey, valerian is the same way. Some people are extremely hyper energized by valerian. So I don't suggest taking that for the first time on a night before you have like a big event or something and you need actual sleep.
Gotcha.
Just put that out there.
Yeah. But lemon balm is nice. I've used lemon balm during the day as well, and I do find that it's helpful and doesn't seem to sedate. Though I have read, I know that's kind of the common thinking around lemon balm. I did read one study that I remember that did say that it does have a little bit of sedating properties, which again, maybe just if you take too much of it. But what was I going to say? Yeah. So, yeah, I think. Oh, the other one that I want to mention here is kava kava that you mentioned before, which has really nice effects. But I've also read some stuff around liver toxicity with that one.
So the liver toxicity issues with kava kava, if you look at the source of that, it was actually mixed. It wasn't kava kava. It was mislabeled or misidentified. And
Really?
so, yeah, that happens a lot now because, you know, with supplements and herbs are not as regulated, which has its pros and cons, right? But yeah, the source of the kava kava in those studies was not actually kava kava. And that happened with several herbs too. Eleuthero, same thing happened. There's some negative studies on it. You look at the source of it, it was actually a filler, some other filler herb.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, it certainly makes sense to me. I've traveled in the South Pacific on a few occasions, and I've been to places where they drink kava every night, and they don't seem to have any incidences of liver disease. At least I certainly didn't see it, but I've also never read anything to suggest that, you know, liver cirrhosis or liver disease is common because of kava.
Yeah, so that's an important thing, you know, for the audience, whoever's listening to this to hear, is make sure you source herbs from, like, don't buy your herbs on Amazon. You need to know where your herbs are coming from, because with their increase in popularity, there's definitely sources that are just stuffing stuff in bags and calling them things, and there's a lot of negative consequences of that. One, it gives herbs a bad name, but two, it can help people. And another thing, while we're on the topic of kava and the more relaxing, nervine, sedating herbs, is they do tend to have herb-drug interactions, so check that out. And usually it's with other anti-anxiety medications.
Benzodiazepines. Yeah.
And then also a lot of them tend to be addicting. And so make sure if you have an addictive personality or if addiction's in your past, you be really careful with those herbs, and really make sure you're either not going to use the specific ones that are known to be addictive, because there's so many others to choose from, or you commit to using it only acutely to get you over that hurdle and get you where you need to be to take care of what the real pain or spasm sleep issue is.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about stimulating.
Okay. Yeah. So something you mentioned, and I wanted to sort of circle back to, is you're like, I don't know if it's both stimulating and relaxing, and how does that happen? So here's the cool thing. Aromatic herbs, which is just a fancy way of saying herbs that you can smell. And this is really most of the herbs on the spice rack, right? These are all the really smelly, tasty, goody herbs. Aromatic herbs are known to be both relaxing because they relax smooth muscle, but they're also stimulating because they increase circulation in the brain and they increase blood flow. So it sounds contradictory to say relaxing and stimulating at the same time, but it's really not, because they're acting upon different tissues in the body. And so that's why someone can take lemon balm who tends to be tense and feel less tense, but also have more mental clarity and focus and memory, which have also been benefits shown for lemon balm. And so lemon balm has been shown to be helpful for children with hyperactivity because it chills them down physically, but helps them focus mentally.
That's the Ayurvedic chill concept.
Yeah.
The Ayurvedic chill theory.
I just putting that out there. So yeah, stimulating herbs. So in my first example, that person who is really lethargic and really has trouble getting motivated, stimulating herbs are probably going to benefit them. And one thing I want to clarify is that stimulating does not mean caffeinating, right? It's not the same thing that stimulating means or has come to mean in our culture. Really, it's more about awakening, enlivening, getting the circulation going. And so if you think about things like peppermint, rosemary, and this has gotten a lot of press in this essential oil group, but essential oils come from aromatic plants. You don't have to buy essential oils to get the actual oils from the plant. You just smell the plant and you're getting those aromatic oils. The cool thing with that too is you don't have to eat them or drink them, which most of them are delicious. But let's say there's a kid who you want to get stimulating, well, know your kid, right? A kid you want to get these stimulating aromatic oils into, you can put them in a foot bath. You can soak them in a bath. They can just smell them. So there's all kinds of ways to get aromatic oil. Oh, you rub them on your skin. There's all kinds of ways to get them into your body.
Okay, so let's delve a little deeper into that specifically. So I'm glad you brought up the essential oil thing because I was going to ask about that. And I would imagine you're also getting some of these aromatic oils by making the teas out of these herbs as well. They're infusing into the water. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there a sort of, hierarchy of effectiveness as far as these delivery methods? Is for example, like drinking the teas, the most efficacious method compared to inhaling, compared to like transdermal delivery? How does that work?
I would say that I'm going to have my students do that experiment because I want to know the answer to that.
Okay.
I don't think it really matters. I think as long as they're getting inside the body into your tissues. Because another way you can do it is just make a steam, like boil a pot of water with the herbs in it, put a towel over your head and smell the herbs, and they're getting into your body. So I don't think there's that sort of hierarchy.
Okay.
One thing I do want to say, so the nutritive herbs that I said, put a quart in here, put an ounce in here and let it steep 8 hours. You don't want to do that with aromatic oils. That's going to be a much shorter steep time because the longer you steep in oil, the more they're going to dissipate out into the steam. So that's like 5 to 20 minutes covered for sure. So they're not dissipating. So I just wanted to make sure to.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. So the nutritive herbs that are non-aromatic are ones you'd steep 4 to 8 hours. The aromatic herbs, which like some of the ones we've talked about, lemon balm, lemongrass, peppermint, rosemary, things like that. These are things that we'd want to do much shorter steep times with.
Absolutely.
and make sure they're covered. Okay, got it.
So if you think about the nutritive herbs, the longer they sit in water, the more minerals are going to come out of the plant and the more vitamins are going to come out of the plant. With the aromatic oils, the more you let it steam, the more the oils are just
okay. Got it. So back to stimulating herbs for a second, because we kind of digress there because of me. So peppermint, rosemary, I know those are two good ones. I've read some really nice research on. I've read, rosemary, for example, they showed just by inhaling rosemary aromatic oils, you're going to see like almost an immediate boost in cognitive performance. I've seen peppermint used to enhance physical performance when used like before exercise and things like that. What else is in this category?
What other herbs?
Yeah.
So things like, so let's talk about the cold person, right? And we mentioned when you bite into ginger, it's automatically heating. You can feel, if you rub ginger on you, you can see your skin turn red because the blood is rushing to the tissues, right? Or dilating to the surface. So ginger is a really common one. Cayenne's a really common one. I have a funny quote from herbalist KP Khalsa. Now, I don't know if this is rooted in science versus tradition, but he says cayenne is the #1 herb for depression. He goes, this is the best herb for depression. You give someone with depression cayenne every day, and they're just going to get up and moving because it's such a circulatory stimulant. So heating.
Very interesting. Okay, so cayenne, you mentioned, so rosemary, cayenne, peppermint, and I think you just, and ginger.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that's worth mentioning in this category here?
So as far as research, I'm not sure, but if you think about the energetics of those herbs, those are all aromatic heating herbs. So I would think really anything in the spice cabinet that's heating and aromatic, you could take it, smell it, drink it, and it's going to get your blood flowing. It's going to get your blood moving. It's going to invigorate.
Okay, got it. So I guess wrapping all of this up, how can someone make choosing the right herb for themselves a little bit easier? And understanding that there's a lot of complexity and a lot of nuances here, but is there, I guess, like a system or a way of thinking about this that someone can use to guide their choices?
Yeah, so I would definitely get away from the question, what herb is good for fill in the blank disease name, and instead start asking, what herb is good for me? And think about knowing yourself and your energetics. And if you don't want to use the herb energetics, be like, am I dry or am I damp? Am I cold or am I hot? Am I tense or am I relaxed? And find the herbs that bring you back into balance. One way to not do that is use Dr. Google, because Google's great for many, many things, but herbs is not one of those things. I would go to the American Herbalist Guild list of registered herbalists and know those names, and then go to their websites because there's tons of free information. So Learning Herbs is an amazing free website where you can learn about herbs, herbal energetics. Is this drying or moistening? Is this heating or cooling? And then match that with your system. Another really great website that dives deeply into herbs and the science and the energetics is herbalremediesadvice.org. That's my mentor's website. And she has a brilliant way of mixing tradition with science and also making sure people know how to match the herbs to themselves instead of the disease name.
Beautiful. And where can people learn more about you and what you do, and where can people go to get more information from you? And if they want to work from you, where do you want to direct them?
Great. So there's 2 different places. If you're interested in becoming a holistic nutritionist / herbalist / wellness coach, you can go to hillcollege.edu/holistic wellness. If you're interested in just reading my blog or working with me as an herbalist or coach or nutritionist, it's loriroseholistic.wordpress.com. And right there on the first page, you'll see blogs and links to my podcast and all sorts of other stuff.
Okay, awesome. And we'll get those links on the show notes for this podcast as well.
Awesome.
Lori, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure, and this has been a very fun, super Ayurvedic chill podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really honored to have had this conversation with you, and thank you so much for inviting me on.
My pleasure, Lori. Thanks so much. All right, take care.
Have a good day.